Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, anyways, man, I thought that I would talk about this news that I was hearing of yesterday, and I'm really hoping overall that this fight ends up coming to fruition. I'm really hoping overall that this news ends up really end up being a 100% signed off on fight, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, for those of you overall that don't know the news, the boxing news, apparently Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter, apparently the WBO has ordered a fight between them. And of course, the WBO belt is the belt that is held by Terence Crawford at this moment in current time when it comes down to it. And Terence Crawford, apparently, he has really been looking for an elite challenge, a great challenge. I'm not really sure how true that is because once again, if Terence Crawford, in my opinion, if really he wanted to face the elite challenges, he probably could have signed with PBC quite a while ago. And I'm also hearing rumors that he may re-sign with Top Rank, which I really hope is not true because there's really no reason for him to. But it is what it is. Anyways, that brings us to the point of a possible Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter showdown, which may happen a little bit later on this year. And I do really hope that this fight ends up happening. I think that it's a great fight. To be honest with you, this might be the first A grade fight, definitive A grade fight that Terence Crawford has ever had in his career. Now, Victor Postal was a decent fight when it comes down to it, but I'm not really sure if you would claim that Victor Postal is a definitive A grade fighter. When we talk about Yuriorkis Gamboa, even, I think Gamboa is a decent fighter. Maybe you can count him as an A grade fighter, but I'm also not sure if you would count Yuriorkis Gamboa as a definitive A grade fighter either. That's up to you. One thing I can say about Shawn Porter, especially at this point in time in his career, Shawn Porter 100% is an A grade fighter. There is no debate about that. Now, Shawn Porter, he does have a few losses in his career, but overall, Shawn Porter, you can tell at this point in time in his career, he's still at a very good point in his career. This is still pretty much during his best years. Certain people may disagree. Now, if I wanted to spread a narrative, like some of the channels that I tend to review when it comes down to whether it be, the LDBC or New Media or whatever, other channel may like to spread a narrative, with their narratives that they like to spread about certain fighters that they don't like Canelo, for example. Like I remember they love to say overall, well, Canelo, he beat a Danny Jacobs overall who already had a loss in his career, and he couldn't even knock him out like Dmitry Pirog did when it came down to it, because that was a fighter that ended up defeating Danny Jacobs early on in his career. But, for those of us that like to put things into context, and for those of us overall that really know what we're watching, we know that Danny Jacobs was a clear A-grade fighter when Canelo Alvarez fought him. That overall he had some pretty decent wins in his career. He certainly was more experienced than what he had been in the past when it came down to it. And overall he was an all-around better fighter. But it is what it is. Anyways, so that's what happened there. If I really wanted to, and if I wanted to tear down this fighter, if I wanted to tear down Terence Crawford, if I was thinking with my emotions here, I could sit here and basically say, well, you know what? Terence Crawford is facing a Shawn Porter who already has a few losses in his career. Who really cares about this fight? And if Terence Crawford doesn't knock him out, overall it's not really that impressive. I could say all these things if I really wanted to push a narrative. But like I said, let's put things in the context here. Now, Shawn Porter has suffered a few losses in his career. But you can tell, even when a fighter has suffered a few losses, when they're at a very good point in their career and when they're pretty much done. Now, Kell Brook and Amir Khan, when Terence Crawford had fought them, overall, those were fighters that were pretty much done in their career. Maybe Amir Khan had a little bit left in the tank, very little. Kell Brook, I don't know if he really had much. He was pretty much done. In my opinion, he pretty much has been done ever since that Errol Spence Jr. fight. Shawn Porter is not a fighter that's done. Even the recent fights that he has lost, he looks very, very much overall like he has a bunch of vigor still in his step when it comes down to it. I think overall that he's still a very dangerous fighter. I think overall that he clearly is an A-grade threat to Terence Crawford. Now, in my opinion, who would I bet on to win this fight? Who do I think overall would win this fight? I would probably bet on Terence Crawford. And let's not get this wrong here. For a certain amount of people overall that don't know me or my opinion about Terence Crawford is one of my favorite fighters to watch in the whole entire world. And once again, Terence Crawford actually comes from my hometown of Omaha, Nebraska. So I've always supported Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford, in my opinion, is an all-time great talent. I think that Terence Crawford really actually, if we want to go there, I don't think we can debate him as the number one overall welterweight in the world. I think that has to be Errol Spence because of the results that he's produced, and on top of that, overall with what he's done in the fighters that he's faced. But Terence Crawford, in my opinion, one thing you can say about Terence Crawford is that he can maybe debatably be the number one overall most talented welterweight in the whole entire world. And a certain amount of people may disagree. I would actually debate Terence Crawford as the most talented welterweight in the whole entire world right now. Once again, certain people may disagree. They may say it's Errol Spence. I think that Terence Crawford, his max talent, may be even a little bit more than that of Errol Spence's, but I can't prove that 100% necessarily because Terence Crawford has not fought the type of fighters that Errol Spence has fought. And that's kind of the problem. Terence Crawford, on my pound for pound list, I think that I have him at about number 3 or number 4. And I think that's a very fair ranking because the fighters that I have above him, they fought top 10 pound for pound fighters. That's the problem with Terence Crawford. You have a certain amount of people that try to debate him as the number 1 pound for pound fighter. I think that he has the talent to eventually become the number 1 pound for pound fighter if he plays his cards right. But the problem with Terence is just that I don't know if I can say that he's ever fought a top 10 pound for pound fighter. I can't say the same thing about Errol Spence. He defeated Mikey Garcia when he was top 10 pound for pound. He also defeated Kell Brook when he was debatably top 10 pound for pound. When we talk about Tyson Fury, who's very high up on my list, he defeated Vladimir Klitschko when he was one of the top 5 pound for pound fighters in the world. And he also defeated Deontay Wilder, who's not top 10 pound for pound, but he certainly would have been top 20 pound for pound, in my opinion, at least when he was undefeated. And then, of course, you have Errol Spence Jr., who am I forgetting? Oh, yeah, Canelo Alvarez. That's who I'm forgetting. Of course, you have him and his resume, which is just absolutely fantastic. I mean, you have a lot of great fighters overall on his resume. But, of course, the best win of his career at this point in time probably is that Gennady Golovkin win, where Gennady Golovkin was ranked as one of the top 3 pound for pound fighters on most lists, when he was undefeated. So I can't have Terence Crawford above any of those fighters. Well, maybe Tyson Fury on my pound for pound list, but I certainly don't have him above Errol Spence Jr., and I certainly can't have him above a Canelo Alvarez. That's just my opinion on the situation. Now, would a win over Shawn Porter, would that change my opinion? Would that change my mind? Probably not, and a certain amount of people may disagree because Shawn Porter at this point in time in his career, he's still not a top 10 pound for pound fighter. So I'm not trying to take away credit from Terence Crawford. I don't think that this is a bad fight at all. This is a great introduction into facing great competition in the welterweight division, whether you could have got a hold of Danny Garcia or Shawn Porter, when it comes down to it. Any of those fights would have been excellent fights, but I don't know if a win over one of those guys really warrants you to move up on my top 10 pound for pound list because Shawn Porter has already been defeated multiple times in his career. Now, obviously, he has, he still is in his best years, in my opinion, but he has shown that he's beatable. Shawn Porter is not a top 10 pound for pound fighter. I think that he'd be a top 20 to top 25 pound for pound fighter, but I can't move you on my pound for pound list because you faced a top 20 to top 25 pound for pound fighter unless you're super low on my list. And Terence Crawford, unless he faces an Errol Spence Jr. or a Manny Pacquiao or someone of that sort, someone who, in my opinion, is a clear A-class fighter, I can't really move him up on my pound for pound list. So for some of you overall that are wondering what this will do for Terence Crawford's pound for pound discussion, I don't really think it's going to do a whole lot for it when it comes down to it. But what I will say is this: it is going to do a greater amount for Terence Crawford's career. Just because, in my opinion, this doesn't really move him up on the pound for pound list, this is going to do a great amount for his career because this is going to be the first official A-grade fight that he's ever been in my opinion. So this is going to be a fantastic fight if it does end up happening. I'm really hoping that this does end up happening. I think it's a fantastic fight when it comes down to it. I would love to see this fight. I think Shawn Porter, he's always someone that has really given any fighter that he's faced a lot of problems when it comes down to, whether it be Errol Spence, whether it be, Kell Brook, whether it be Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, whoever he's fought out there, he's always gave them a hell of a lot of problems, even in his losses. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. I'm very excited to see this fight. I'm really, really hoping that this fight ends up happening. We'll see what happens. And if Terence Crawford does get past Shawn Porter, if he does look more impressive against Shawn Porter than what an Errol Spence did, or a Kell Brook, or a Keith Thurman, that'll certainly speak to his class. Now, there are certain fighters overall, like I said, if I wanted to push a narrative here, I could try to say overall, well, you know what? If Terence Crawford does knock out Shawn Porter, it's not really that impressive because he's a lot more wore down because he has a few losses. He does have a few losses, but once again, certain fighters or certain athletes, whether they be older with age or had they suffer a couple losses, certain fighters, for example, when they suffer a couple of losses, they're still at a decent point in their career. Shawn Porter and Danny Garcia, those are two great examples. Now, two fighters overall that probably had a lot of the vigor taken out of them when they suffered a few losses, probably like a Kell Brook and Amir Khan. Like, those are good examples of fighters who are not the same fighters anymore. But certain fighters like a Shawn Porter, you can tell clearly that, they're still very much in the game. So this is a great fight. I think it's a fantastic fight. I'm really, really hoping that this fight ends up getting set up. I think it's a fantastic fight. We'll see what happens. My early prediction, I would have to go with Terence Crawford by unanimous decision. But don't underestimate Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter may be a type of style that Terence Crawford is not used to. Terence Crawford at times is hittable when it comes down to it. And this is going to be the biggest fight of his life so far yet in his career. So I'm very excited for the potential of this fight happening. I'm really hoping that it does happen. And we'll see what happens. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. And I'll talk to you all later.